Good morning. I am about 13 weeks on testosterone, just over 3 months. And I want to talk about something that I've noticed is different that I didn't realize would happen and what I think it means for me and maybe even cisgendered men. So since I started testosterone, I actually haven't been able to cry. And that's not actually as much of a good thing as you'd think it would be. At least it's not for me. I realized this the other day, but it really came into full effect yesterday for me. So a couple weeks ago, one of my friends, her mom passed away, and I was there, and there was a moment when she was saying goodbye to her mom that I felt all of the feelings and all of the emotions, and I was so touched, and I wanted to cry, and I cried for like 3 seconds, like it was like 3 tears, and then it stopped. And everyone else around me is sobbing, and I just but the men weren't. The women were sobbing, and the men were really like withdrawn and into themselves, right? And so then, so lately I've been struggling with a lot of emotions. And so when I say I can't cry, I'm not saying I don't feel the feelings. Like I really, really, really feel the feelings. They just don't come out in tears the way that they used to come out. Like I used to be able to cry at a song, and now nothing. Like nothing. And that is, that is a thing. Like I did some research on it, and there's a chemical that testosterone doesn't produce as easily as estrogen does, and that chemical influences one's ability to produce tears. And there's a whole like nature versus nurture debate. For me, I think it's almost exclusively hormonal, because I'm quite comfortable with crying. Not that I didn't enjoy crying, how easily I cried, but now I realize how grateful I am for that I used to have that ability. So last night, I was feeling awful, completely awful, all day. Lately, people, they know that I'm transitioning. People know I'm transitioning, but they're still using female pronouns, and just I can explain all day to them, and try to educate them, and they'll still use female pronouns, and it's kind of like messes with my mind because I am experiencing physical changes. I'm experiencing physical changes, and that are signified like male, that are male identified, to me. And so while my body's going one way, like going male, for lack of a better term, I'm still perceived as a female by a lot of people. And I know, like intellectually, I know who I am, and as long as my physical safety isn't threatened, it doesn't matter what other people think. But it does hurt me because it actually shows me people aren't listening. Like you're just not listening, especially when I explain it all, and just the energy that takes to explain it. And then, just as easily we go back to female pronouns, and I just felt last night like it was like shit, like no one sees me, man. Like not nobody, but that's how it felt. It was like people don't see me. They're not listening. And that's a really isolating feeling because we're social beings. We need to be around people, right? We need community. So and it happens everywhere, like work, school. School hasn't happened yet, actually, but work, the bank, medical, 12-step program, like it happens everywhere. More up in the north than it does in the south. Like it still happens for me in a larger urban city, but not nearly as much. And people are more readily willing to correct people when they use the incorrect pronoun for me. And people say weird things here, like, oh, like I would have assumed your pronoun was this if you hadn't said anything, but you're confusing me. And it's like, no, you shouldn't assume people's pronouns, first of all, and you probably wouldn't have. So So I was feeling really, really down and isolated, because I also don't have any family here. I'm doing this by myself. Not by myself, I have friends and stuff, but I am alone physically a lot. And the places that I go to connect, those people say they understand, and to a degree they do, but not enough to use the pronouns that I asked them to use. So I was feeling incredibly down yesterday, and on my way home, I had, for the first time in like 3 months, the thought of suicide. And it was really jarring for me because I hadn't thought that in 3 months. And I felt the emotion. I really felt the emotion. It was so strong. And I wanted to cry. And so as I was walking home, I cried for 3 seconds again. It was like 1, 2, 3, and then the tears just stopped. It just stopped, and I was like, holy smokes, like it's stuck, but the emotion's not out. The emotion isn't out. It wasn't out. And I feel all of the emotions. Like I said, I feel them all very much, very deeply, but they can't come out in the way that they used to. I talked to some friends that have gone through this. Some of them said that it took them months to years to be able to like release like that, in that way. It was really apparent to me and jarring because when I wasn't on testosterone, I could cry very easily. Now, there is a benefit to this. I feel a little bit more relaxed and not as ruled by my emotions. But I suddenly feel incredibly grateful for my moon time or my menstrual cycle. When I used to have it, I've stopped having it now, but when I used to have it, because it facilitated a natural release each month for me. And I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I do now in retrospect. Because the feelings, like, they're so deep and we feel them, but they just can't come out. I can't get them out. So what I did is I ended up talking to two friends, one who's up here and one who is in the south, and just told them everything that I was feeling and everything that I was thinking and what was frustrating me, and just getting it off my chest. And it really, it helped. I felt better because I felt seen and I felt heard by the end of it, and I felt valued. But it was still, and that's kind of helped get the emotion out. And then I started thinking, like, but it didn't fully get it out, like I still have a lot of energy pent up. I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to try working out or creative expression or something to get all of that energy out. Because the other two times that I notice that I feel something or some sort of release is when I'm eating, sleeping, or when sex is involved, or something of that nature. It's crazy. It's so crazy. Those are the times that I'm like, okay, I feel like some kind of release. I'm also doing this completely sober. And I would imagine that substances like that can also facilitate a release for people. Testosterone people. Anybody, but I get it from this side now, I understand. And it makes me wonder, like, what this means for cisgendered men. Because for me, I've been conditioned 30 years as a woman, so I knew to talk to somebody. I'm used to talking my shit out. I'm used to going to somebody and talking forever and ever and ever and getting it all out. But cisgendered men they don't have that. They just don't have what that conditioning that I've had. And I think that's maybe where the nurture part comes in, is in terms of nature, like, we just, testosterone people, like, whether naturally producing or through medical intervention, can't produce tears and thus a release in the same way. But cisgendered men have been conditioned to not talk in society in the same way. And I have noticed that, you know, like in the circles that I'm largely accepted as male, my words are more, they seem to hold more weight. I don't meet as much resistance in terms of my decision-making abilities. I don't get questioned as much, but I'm also not really part of the social circle anymore. Like, I'm not included in the inner workings, which in some degree is fine, because I'm not like, I don't really care what other people are doing. But at the same time, it's like, crap, like, I wouldn't mind going for coffee or tea with somebody. But I guess I need to ask. I don't know. Anyways, so I've just like thought about it. It's like, man, I would imagine that this contributes to the high suicide rates in men, because testosterone people, like, we feel the feelings. I can't say everybody, but like, I know that I feel the feelings very deeply. But I can't get them out in the same way that I used to be able to. So I can't, like, and yeah, when I had that thought of suicide, I knew, talk to somebody, get it out. And I've had life experience as a woman that has prepared me to be able to talk to people about it. And that's, again, not to say all men, all women, all trans, all two-spirit, like, I can't say that. But what I've noticed is I grew up in women's circles. I grew up in circles with women where they talked everything out. And when I think about the men, they gather together, but it's just not in the same way. There's a lot of like physical doing of things. Like, I have friends, you know, like, we hang out every day for 6 months, guy friends, and then after 6 months they say, like, my dad died. And I'm like, how did you not tell me all that time? So I think that in that way it is social conditioning, and nature and nurture. But yeah, that's something that I've noticed, is just my inability to cry, and thus in turn release in the same way that I used to be able to release. That part's really apparent to me. And it's hard. Like, how do we get the emotions out then? How do we get the emotions out? So I have to find another way to do that. But talking really helped. I'm going to try some other things. I'll let you guys know how that works out. I think I would have appreciated my menstrual cycle more if I knew what it was doing for me. You know, people used to say to me, my aunt when I was young said, cry, because she didn't cry enough, and then she wasn't able to. And I don't know if that was like a kid's tale or if that was like a real thing, but that lesson really stayed with me. I was about 6, and I'm thinking about it a lot right now. To really, really appreciate those tears when they come, because they do not come easily now. And I understand why men needed the sweat lodge, because they needed that release. They just don't have that. I never understood that, you know, when they said, I mean, intellectually, but I didn't understand it on an emotional wisdom level. And that whole, like, you know, women or estrogen people, like, each month get that release with their moon time or their menstrual cycle. And men needed the lodge. Sorry, I just woke up. Men needed the lodge to get that release. And I get that now. I do get that now, because the emotions are there. They're felt very deeply. And I feel blessed because I have something to compare it to, right? Like, I have 30 years as a woman or an estrogen person to compare what life used to be like to now. Like, I can express and say, I can't cry, and I want to. I do feel I'm not insensitive. I feel very deeply, but I just can't get it out in the same way that I could when I didn't have testosterone in me. So that's what I've learned. I do think that contributes to it. I can only surmise or guess that it contributes to high suicide rates among men, right? To feel all those feelings and not be able to get them out, and then not be used to expressing them in some way that doesn't have to maybe do with like drugs, alcohol, sex, food, but to express them with another human being. This is all hypothesis. Like I can't know for sure. But this is just what I think. This is what I think. Because those feelings were overwhelming. They were really overwhelming, and it would have been really easy to succumb to that like suicide thought if I didn't know to go talk to somebody and have experience talking to somebody. So that's that. I hope this was helpful. When I understand more and know more, I'll let you guys know. Physical updates. I have hot flashes. I'm sleeping lots. I'm eating lots. My facial hair, I've been shaving it, but it grows in very quickly compared to before. I'm getting a lot of body hair, but I'm actually okay with the body hair. But yeah, the crying thing, that was what I wanted to note the most. Holy smokes. So have a good day, everyone. I hope this was helpful.